Okay, so I presume everyone can see this? Yeah, it's there.
Yes, perfect.
Very nice. So what are the particular areas you're looking for feedback on? I know been having some email discussions. Like there was a discussion about whether it should have a two over there on the right, or should say more, or should or shouldn't have a plus sign. There's been a lot of discussion on uh, the Publish Now button and the View Site As. Uh, that'll look familiar. Excuse me. So what do folks think? Let's see.
So this is Chuck. I, of course, love it, except that I do not like losing vertical space to enter student view. So I think enter student view should either go to just to the left of Eduardo's name or to the bottom, just like Wilma mentioned in the Notre Dame thing. I love that. I don't care. It probably makes more sense in the lower left, as Wilma showed. In the Wilma version, that allows it to feel like it's part of the site rather than part of the system, which has been a concern of putting it too far, right? If you put it at the very top, that really implies it's viewing. And so I think that lower left that Notre Dame came up with is pretty brilliant, actually.
So, Wilma, I guess would this be one that would be good for UX testing, or do you have like an A/B kind of test for that?
If you want me to get some feedback, I mean, we could show people a couple different placements and ask them which one they like the best. We could show them the bottom underneath the tool menu, and then maybe up next to the user's name. Are those the two that we're kind of leaning toward, or is there another variation? So I agree, I don't like losing that vertical space at the top. Although I do like that black frame around the tab, the course tab, and the content area. I think that looks nice.
And where is the publish unpublish button going?
I think it shows up above home when it's there, and when it's not there, it just doesn't show up.
So when you're published, it doesn't show up. You'd have to unpublish a site. You'd have to go into site info.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with what Eduardo is showing right now on the screen, it's how we have it in multi right now, and we have it. It's floated on the top menu, and it's fixed.
So what does that mean, fixed? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
I
think
see.
he's
Oh, I
trying
see.
to reproduce it right now. Yeah.
It like hides that whole top two rows, huh?
Yeah, we've seen instructors that have like 3 or 4 rows.
They need to hide their sites.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting idea.
So is that the publish, unpublish up at the top, that yellow bar? It's always there?
Student view. I when you click and you enter the student view, we change the background, turn it into like black and white. That's like the student view right now. That one is the published and unpublished site. This one that Eduardo is right now is published, can unpublish, and you will see where. So it tells you that the site is unpublished, and you can put from there, top right corner. Have it for I think for sure for 10, and I think for 2.9 then published there, but the student view was. Yeah, thanks Edu for for driving us around.
So what are the remaining questions? So we have the where to place the, always I think maybe this button's with a little hidden if user has many tools. Right, I understand. So in other words, with respect to the view site as button, you're worried that if there's a lot of tools that it won't be so obvious to the instructor how to switch to the student view, because it'll be further and further down.
And put it in the upper left above home, just like site publish.
The only difference in that with site publish, it looks like the publish, once you publish it, it goes away. Then you'd be left with view site as over there. If people are okay with that, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to come defaulted to home, right? Because it's not really a tool in that upper left-hand corner, right? I mean, if you put it above home, you're going to go to the site and it's going to be at home because view site as will never be selected because it's not really a tool, right?
Right. What do you barely use, Eduardo? The site icon. But Oxford has quite a few with site icons.
Canvas has it kind of hidden, actually, if I'm not mistaken. I think Canvas has it on the right-hand side of either home. So Canvas has these right-hand side menus in addition to the left-hand side menu. And I think View as Student is either on the right-hand side of home or it's on the right-hand side of what we would call Site Info. neither of those seemed intuitive to me.
Hmm. So we have the needs of, it'd be nice to be able to have the view side as show that it's a site level thing and not a system level thing. Would be nice associated with the site. You want to make it obvious, but on the other hand, if you do that, you take up some screen real estate. If you push it back down to the bottom, then it doesn't take up the screen real estate, but it might be hard for the instructor to find, especially if they're using a lot of tools.
So my instinct is, if I had to make a decision, I would put it on the left bottom following Notre Dame. Put it on the left bottom like Notre Dame does it, and know that the teacher is going to find their way to site info a lot. They're going to find it sooner or later, right? As compared to annoyingly putting it in the upper left. And I think that I'd never seen the left bottom before.
Yeah, I kind of like it on the left bottom because it's sort of out of the way, but if you're looking for it, you know where it's going to be and you just scroll down. Because they're not going to go into the student view that much, maybe just to preview something when they're done, making changes. But it's something, once they learn where it is, they're going to find it.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's a good assumption, but I would wonder if the more tools that an instructor would use, I don't know if it's a good assumption that would mean they tend to be a bit more tech savvy. Like, is that a true statement? Because then if you're making that assumption, then if you're adding a lot of tools and pushing it further down, you would kind of
you will have seen it before you'll have seen it before you made the thing long, and you'll have gone into site info many times. And the nice thing there is you'll see it gently. It'll impact upon you that it's there, and about the time you need it, you'll know where it's at. As compared to burying it the way Canvas does in a right menu, that is only there when you're like, this UI changes. Like, whoa, the home UI looks different than a tools UI, and so I think I like the Wilmer proposal a lot. I mean, I think the thing to do in any of these situations when we're done is come up with what we think is the best and then show it to people, right? Just move on. Just say, right now we can't think of something better. So I would rather us not sort of try to do experiments to figure out what's better, but just commit to trunk that which we on this day at this moment think is the best we can do. And then that is natural exposure, right? If we wait for a test, it's silly. We can test it. Just let's test it out of trunk.
That would actually be easier to test because then we can just go to trunk to show people.
Yeah, that's one advantage. Right, you're right. Exactly right.
Yeah, I was just gonna add, if you put it on the left menu down at the bottom, do you think it should look different? I mean, different.
I agree. I think it should. I think I agree with what you're saying. I think it should.
Yeah, because it's not a tool. It's just a role switch, so it needs to look slightly different than the regular tools in the menu.
Yep, and you did that at Notre Dame, and I liked how that looked.
Cool.
So can we move on from that? Do you think that's on this call a consensus to put that in trunk? Anyone object?
No.
No? Okay. No objections? Cool. All right. Good.
And they're the black that is right now, right? Enter student view on the top. That one.
The one that's showing right now?
We'll free that. Yeah.
Outright, the inter-student view, that would go on the left instead, at the bottom.
Underneath the tools with some kind of slightly different styling than just another block under there. Can I ask another question? Just unrelated. So if you scroll down to the bottom of the tool list, on the lower right hand of the box of tools, there is a radius corner. And everything else we do is a square corner. And then if you go down to the very footer, the footer has radius corners. And everything else has square corners. I'm wondering why we switch between square and radius.
Me too.
I'm glad. I don't. It just seems like radius and square is a kind of a foundational stylistic thing, right? I mean, can I find so like you look at Twitter, right? They're into radiuses. Twitter's into radius, right? Everything's got a radius on it. Let's go to Facebook. It's always dangerous when you mistype URLs. Facebook's not into radiuses, right? And they never have radiuses. So Twitter always has radiuses, and Facebook never has radiuses, which
Canvas have.
Canvas. I don't even have a shortcut to Canvas. Canvas is so ugly. No. Dang phone. Hang on, let me go on and mute all the stupid phones ringing.
So, Eduardo, you like having both? Do you like both? But do you like the having the consistency?
Canvas is weird. Canvas is no radius on the left nav, but the buttons on the right nav have radius. Everything, let me check. And they don't even have view as student on. They have a little bit of radius at the top, but every sort of thing that blocks out square space, meaning if it's really kind of a div-like thing rather than a button-like thing, they tend to think of things with radius as buttons. Buttons have radiuses and blocks do not. It's probably the best way to characterize Canvas's look and feel. And switch to student is hidden inside info. Now that I'm looking at Canvas, switch to student is hidden in site info under their site info as a left nav.
What do they call their site info?
Settings.
Settings. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
They also have a people where the users are listed. So they've split it.
Yeah, so that would be one of the things of site info. Yeah. I don't actually like that, to be honest. Maybe I'm just used to where we're at. I don't understand why people and settings are two different things, but oh well. It's interesting because it's kind of like site and realm. So they would have a realms tool. Not that I want to have a realms tool. So
what's the decision? Squares or property or what?
Material design. What's material design? Material design, some meaningful thing. Oh, it's a Google thing. It's Google. It has to be good. Yeah. Motion provides meaning. Well, it's kind of clear then that that was somewhat what influenced first order. It kind of influenced Canvas, whether that predated it or not. So if we look at us now, we are a mix of round and square on rectangles, rectangular spaces, and square on buttons. Although his top nav got a little radius on it. Administration, workspace, citations, and min, there's a little radius on those. And I'll be honest, I think buttony like things, I like them with radius. Laura, rounded corners make the individual modules seem to stand out as separate more. Do you mean on the buttons on the left, Laura? Yeah, they're all square, you're saying, okay. Well, I would say, how about we do this in the short term? Let's get rid of the radius on the left bottom, and then get rid of the radius on the footer, and then argue about this later, okay? Because at least it doesn't seem like a mistake, right? We can argue whether or not buttons should be radiused or not. We could argue whether on the left side they should be buttons within a space or just spaces, because what Canvas does that sometimes, they're just the clickable areas are just spaces. Oh, of course we could. Yeah. I agree, Uday. Of course, people put radius on all day long, and it ought to be easy, right? It ought to go radius, right? If you're going to go radius on, yeah. No, and so like you could have that lower right on tools be radius, and you could have all the windows be radius, and then you could have the footer be radius, and then I'd be a happy guy at that point, right? Just whatever those things, those three things, the toolbar on the left, the window, and the bottom ought to be consistent. And one SAS variable. One SAS variable. We could stay with square as default. Although separately, I would argue that like buttons need to be radiused, but I think square. All these things you got to take a style at some point, but that's way out of my thing. So I would say default would be very, very square. Yeah, I'm agreeing with Laura. How come no one else is talking? Does everyone has problems talking?
I think some people are having problems with the microphone. Yeah, Uday's having a problem with his mic, and Eduardo isn't on with the mic today. So yeah, at least a couple people are like that.
Laura too. Laura's just listening, so Laura's in listening mode. Okay. Oh, okay, Laura, I got you. Laura's in a common room with a bunch of other people. Gotcha.
Pod Farm.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is the perfect situation for me. No one can talk except for me, and I love to hear my own voice.
So I think we have a decision on that, right? Just going with the squared and making it a SAS variable.
Yep.
And there was and that's a starting point.
It's a decision for this week.
Yeah. It sounded like there was some interest in maybe having a radius for buttons, and that sounds like it would be okay. Any other decisions?
It'd be nice to have a SAS for button radiuses too, right? And then if you're going in that, SAS for button radiuses, administration workspace, all that stuff at the top has got a radius on it, but logout doesn't, right? So why? And options doesn't on the page I'm looking at. So it would seem like there would be a thing called button radius or button no radius and space radius and no space radius. And you could turn either, any combination of those things on. So space is square or radius, spaces are square or radiuses, or buttons are square or radiuses. And then bam, you just turn that on or off in your SAS. And that'll be just fun as heck. If you can turn that on in one little thing. Of course, you have to probably set the radius size too, but that would be super awesome. Consistency, just snap, snap.
He writes that's what he was thinking. Unless that was old. Success variable for buttons and different variable for the rest of UI. Cool. So we done with that discussion? And Eduardo Ray agrees with that. Cool. So I think the other item we had some discussion on already was the more sites, with Wilma putting that 2 with the number of sites that you have hidden and the drop-down arrows. And did we want to make a decision on that and put it in trunk, or do we want to have like an A/B test on that one? Or both, put it in trunk and that will give you feedback. Assuming we were done with the last conversation. Oh, sorry. Well, first of all, are we done with that last conversation? Am I cutting out?
Not anymore, you were.
Okay. Well, I was just checking, are we done with that last conversation? It sounded like we had converged on a solution. Okay. And then the second one was, what's the next thing that folks want to discuss? And I just pointed out, wondered if we should maybe just hit the more sites button, which the first iteration that Wilma did was with the number, with the chevron arrows pointing down, which was based on the number, just the number being there by itself. So my question, if I'm not cutting out, my question was, do we want to just go with something and put it in trunk, or do we want to do a little A/B testing on some options for that?
What is it now in trunk?
Probably more sites. I'll take a quick look. Probably just as more sites. Well, it's a little bit of a pain to test because you have to put enough sites in.
Yeah, but I mean, I would say ultimately it's have something in trunk and let's do some A/B testing.
You don't like the plus idea, huh? You just like the number and the chevrons?
Yeah, I don't like the plus because it feels like you're doing something or changing something. It's an alteration of the state of the system.
Yeah. It could look like you want to add another site or something like that.
Mm.
Yeah, or liking something, or marking it as a bookmark.
So we just want to test the number by itself versus more.
Yeah. So Eduardo, you kind of like the plus also, like me? You like plus the number like I do. Yeah. Yeah, no, it sounds like we have about 3 options, but 3 maybe, maybe just pick one. Yeah. So if we had to pick 2 for an A/B, would it be with and without the plus, or? Or can you just get like quick input on the three things? I mean, it potentially could be what? Plus that. I guess we're at three options, right? The existing sort of more sites, the number with the chevrons, and the plus number with the chevrons. Yeah. So which one do we want to shove into trunk? Oh, that's a good question. Ode asks, is the 2 is the exact number of it's the exact number of more sites. Is that correct? Yes. Adding plus seems to be more than 2. Eduardo writes that it's calculated by JavaScript. So Wilma, do you have an opinion? What do you think that we should do?
I think I like just the number without the plus,
Uh-huh.
just because it does kind of seem like you're adding or liking or doing something to it,
Okay.
to me anyway.
Uh-huh.
But I do think maybe we should test between the number and the word more to see which one is better for users. I think they would figure out the number pretty quick, but maybe they would prefer text. I'm not sure.
Okay. So would it be easier to have the number 1 be in trunk to show them what that looks like, or would it be, could you just do it based on the like what would you like to be in trunk?
I guess we can go with the number because they're used to seeing more sites right now. So the number is more different than just changing the text on there. But if I could also do, just a couple of slides showing, a screen capture of trunk and, with the 2 or with the more to do an exact comparison.
So Uday writes, yes, me too. The number without the plus makes more sense since chevron already mentions more. I think we have to go with either a plus or a chevron. Having both, this sounds odd for me, since they both represent more. I see what you're saying. In other words, if we did a plus, then it wouldn't make sense to have the chevron, because the plus is like the action that you're telling that means more. But then if you have the chevron, that's the action that means more. So if you have a plus and a chevron, it's like, well, why do you have both those things?
Yeah, I think the A and the B are number, I think Wilma hit this, number with chevron versus number with plus. And if they hate it and they go like, number, we hate the number, well, then we'll have learned something.
Right.
I think that's what you're saying, right, Wilma?
Actually, no.
But you wanted more sites?
Yeah, I was going to compare more sites to the number without the plus. But if you want to compare the number with the chevrons versus the number with the plus, we could do that. I'm not crazy about just the number with the plus and no chevrons, though.
Me neither. That's the one I like the least.
Yeah.
The one I like the least is anything with a plus sign.
Yeah, especially without the chevrons, I think it really looks like you're adding or liking. It's
Two
not.
actions.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 actions. But yeah, I don't like the plus there at all. But I am only one opinion.
Well, I think what Uday says makes a lot of sense to me. So that kind of has swayed me a bit. Maybe it doesn't make sense to have a plus and a chevron. So I think it would be one or the other, or just more sites. And I'm okay with whatever you guys want to try and do.
So another way we solve these problems is we let Uday make the decision as to what the default is.
I was trying to do that with Wilma, but now I can push it over to Uday. Sure.
Yeah. Uday has commit, so that simplifies it, right?
Right, true.
And then we can give us a default, which is what is the default now? Oh, no.
I will test with the chevron.
Yeah.
pronounce it.
Chevron, right?
I will test with that one. I think it really looks nice on the screenshot, on the mockup.
Yeah, I kind of like the number because it gives you more information. You know,
Yeah, the number
you know
feels
how
like
many sites you have, not
it
just.
feels like a notification, right? It feels like something that's notifying you, you know, and I like that. Yeah.
The default is +N right now. That's the default in shrunk.
Well, I'm liking what I'm seeing on Eduardo's screen right now. That is my favorite right now.
Yeah, that's right. It does take up less space.
I would say, why don't we go with the number and the chevron like we're seeing on the screen and put that in shrunk, and then you can do, you know, A/B testing around that or get feedback on that.
Okay.
Can I ask a crazy, insane question?
Sure.
Okay, so here's the crazy, insane question. I'll tell you what I would love to see. I would love to see the number of sites in that top not be a fixed number where the person says, give me 5. And, but it adapts dynamically to the width of the space. And so if you're narrower, you see 4. And they disappear as you resize, as compared to, so anytime that would overflow, we disappear the rightmost one, right? So that whole thing never gets big, right? We don't allow it to get big anymore. We don't say, I'm putting 7 up there, and then you lose the top. Oh.
I like that. I think that keeps it really
here
nice
comes.
at the top.
Ah! Never mind. Outstanding. Okay. It's already done. Pinch myself. I must be dreaming. Thank you. That's nice. That is really nice. Well, no, if their screen gets wide, Laura, they just keep getting more, right? If you throw this on a big screen, but if it gets narrow, it doesn't, just like we do now, just keep chewing up vertical space. And that number will change. It'll go like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you know, or 0, right?
But if I recall right, that was related to preferences.
In the old days, it was, and we could and should fix that, right?
Okay. I mean, I was just.
No, we should and could fix that, so that in effect, there should be just 2 columns. There is like stuff in the shortcuts and the order of the stuff in the shortcuts, right? I can get rid of the preference, Neil. What I'd rather do at this point is, and I would love to get rid of the preference, by the way. I know. no.
Well, we still want them to be able to reorder them, because if there's a site that they see use a lot, they want to be able to see it. So it's over on the far left.
Yeah. So what I want to do is I want to turn that preference into a /direct, so that basically we can just have Eduardo make it so they can just, when they hit the open, they can drag them around, right? And they just drag them around, and then he can hit a direct that stores the preference, right? And that way we just kill that whole preference screen, unless it has to do with somehow getting more beyond the 12 or 14 ones that are in your shortcuts. So I don't know. So, but I would like to turn the reordering screen into a direct API call so that we could write more clever JavaScript and then just change it in the back. It's not hard to do.
The reordering would go, you would reorder right on the title bar versus having to go into a preferences?
Or something, right? Where you click and hold down the bottom center button for a really long time and the icons start wiggling. And then you just drag them around when they're wiggling. So that, but let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. But that's the thing to do. I mean, we can fix the preferences tool, but I would rather just kill it and make it something that we do in direct in JavaScript from this point forward.
Okay, but for right now, we're keeping the preferences tool because we're experimenting with these things, but maybe at a later date.
Correct. We're not going to wipe out the preferences tool for a while, but boy, that's nasty code. And I would love it to be replaced by JavaScript and Direct.
We'd still need a way to be able to hide sites, though.
Yes, correct. That's what we'd have to design after we decided that, right? Then we might have a plus button.
Yeah, to add them back.
Right, to add them back.
To get rid of them, plus to add them back. That would be cool. Because
Yeah.
nobody knows how to do that now. That was another thing that we found in the testing.
And that's the most
yeah,
horrible
I mean,
UI.
people were unjoining sites to try to get them out of the menu.
Yeah.
So that nobody knows how to do that. Or
yeah.
very few.
Too bad we don't have a bottom button that we can hold and then they can wiggle, because everyone knows how to wiggle, right? And put little X's on the upper left-hand corners of them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, maybe it doesn't have to be exactly like that. Yeah, that's a great idea. There's some way you can.
Yes,
show
Eduardo.
X's and they can just click the X and it goes away. Yeah, that
Yeah.
totally, people will totally get that.
And
As long
Eduardo,
as
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, Eduardo. Ajax saving on every move. Yes, every move. That would be the idea.
Okay. Were there any other? Was everything clear so far? Is there any questions? Everything's clear in terms of next steps?
I did want to briefly mention one thing that came up at the UX interest group meeting yesterday. I showed them some of these mock-ups just to kind of get an idea of what sort of discussions were going on at the Morpheus check-in. And there was a comment about the home icon, that moving it down made it kind of too close to the course home, that it might be confusing. So I don't know. I mean, that was kind of what I heard from some of the comments in the meeting. Neil, I don't know if you got the same impression.
Not sure, but it sounds like feasible.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if anybody else has a strong opinion on that. In this image, there's white space in between, but if you go to one of Eduardo's pictures, where he has the home button, the My Workspace home moved down to the second line. That was the one that a couple of people commented on the call that they thought it was maybe a little bit confusing to have the two homes so close together.
I agree, keeping the logo clickable. I agree. I agree with that sentiment, Wilma. When it went down, I'm like, that seems weird. I'd really like the idea that whole middle bar there was going to be site tabs, and then the home, I don't know, just.
Yeah, because that top bar is kind of the user system level right now, you know?
Yeah.
It's My Workspace, it's your user account, and it's log out of the system. So it seems like maybe it makes sense to keep it up there only and leave that second bar just for sites.
That'd be thumbs up.
Yeah, it is a site. And originally when I saw it there, I thought, oh, well, that makes sense because I was kind of used to having it as a site. But then when a couple people commented on it at the meeting, I kind of looked at it again and thought, well, maybe not. So I don't know. I was a little bit on the fence, but I think if I had to pick one, I would leave it in the top bar.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Wilma on that. I mean, you know, I think that the reason it's been on the same bar as all the other sites is that technically it is a site, right? But it's different, right? It's me, and you know, from a semantic sense of what it is me. It is not one of my courses, not one of my groups. And so that's why I like that second bar. That's just the places I go. Home is my home, and the home is not just another one of the places I go. I think we ought to break that notion of My Workspace as another site. And I think people will respond well to that.
Was that a song?
Yeah. Here's another thing that we could do. Not that I'm trying to make it crazier, but it would be fun to come up with a simple preferences tool that basically lets them pick the colors of their own site. So that just like when you go into Twitter, the background is green on some people's sites, right? And so in home, it would all go green, right? Or whatever. And you go into the university, that would have a whatever. And so that would help people understand that this is a different thing and you get to control your thing. And the black background and the primary color of the blue, could be changed. And so we could build a picker for that, for the home. And then it feels really different.
I think that would be awesome.
Yeah. You know what? And I would make a direct for that. We would never make a user interface for that runs in the server. I would make an Ajax API for that. Just saying. Yep. All right, you're right. Customizing your Gmail screen.
And that's how we could do fundraising too. We could have some themes, and we could sell them.
Yeah, we could even come up with 4 or 5 things, right? 4 or 5 things that we put in as stylable, like radiuses, for example, right? So we might come up with 4 or 5 fun things where, I'm a radius guy. And so I want to have my background on my homepage be, red, because I want to represent for Alabama. And I'd like radiuses everywhere. And then we start thinking about things like, are there other CSS things we can do? Now that I'm going crazy on this, there's other CSS things we could do, like make my text 50% larger everywhere on this site that I go.
That would actually be really good for people who have difficulty viewing the screen, or even for accessibility if they have trouble with colors, green, red.
Yep. I don't want to go too far. I mean, we could have a lot of fun with this, probably not before the 11 freeze, but it all goes back to this notion that I think home is different than on site. Hence, going back to what Wilma said, which triggered all this, home goes up, not left.
Well, I see it's about we're about out of time. Are there any additional major areas that we want to look at for next time, or are we getting pretty close to having the Morpheus for 11?
Okay, so action items for next week is just the A/B testing on the number.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Any final issues or excuse me, thoughts? Let's see, there's some in the sidebar here. Eduardo is writing, add CSS styles on preferences, but obviously without writing CSS. And Chuck S says, yes, indeed, mostly if you check boxes and fill in bits. And Eduardo writes, yep, I like it. I will see it with Merano.
I gotta Google Translate.
Oh, that's Juanjo Merano.
Yeah, it's a name.
Oh, I thought that was tomorrow.
That's mañana.
Ah.
All right.
Translated into English, it's exactly the same thing. So there you go. Because it's a person's name.
All right. Well, I think I motion we adjourn the meeting today.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Hey, thanks, everyone.
Cheers, all.
Cheers.
Bye.